21A be agreed to. Amendment 21E as amendment to 21A. Baroness Jones of Moulsecoomb.
Thank you. My Lords, I rise to try to reintroduce the original Amendment 21 that went through the other place it was a Labour amendment supported by the government. It went through, and the noble lady, the Baroness, the Minister has said that this has the spirit of the original Amendment 21. But quite honestly, you've missed out some of the detail, which is so absolutely crucial. And I'm quite interested as well about some of that scientific advice that this government has taken, because some of you may know that in Wales, they voted last week on to pass a fracking moratorium. And in Scotland, the week before, they passed a fracking moratorium until the risks could be assessed. And it's those risks that I would like to mention today. This farce of scheduling means there's been very little time to debate, and also no time for a vote at the Commons report stage. And I feel that the government here is doing a U-turn. It is simply not good enough to pass something in one place and then to actually change something that's quite substantial. And there are two issues in particular that I would like to raise. The first is the possibility of fracking near groundwater sources. This is absolutely crucial. And there's also the issue of trespass under people's homes. The amendments that went through the other place were already probably not sufficient to protect against all sorts of risks, but at least they were there. And the amendments submitted today may even overturn those quite limited protections. It's the fracking within groundwater source protection zones 1 to 3, and that's the areas around the aquifers that actually safeguards our drinking water. Now, we've heard, of course, that the government is going to possibly redefine these areas, but they have already been defined by the Environment Agency. I see absolutely no reason for redefining them when they've been done over many years. It seems to me that our drinking water does need protection. I can't believe anybody here doesn't agree with them with that.
I hope you will not forget to inform the House that groundwater is very close to the ground. That's why it's called that. The aquifers are very close to the ground. The fracking occurs between a mile and a half deep. And therefore, what she is saying has no merit whatever.
Noble Lord, for his intervention, I would like to say, of course, that fracking has risks of earth tremors and earthquakes, and so, in fact, water could be polluted very easily. So I would argue that his comments have no merit.
Could the noble Baroness point me at any scientific research that supports what she's saying?
Oh. It is very close at hand if you would like to look at that. I mean, I can give you any number of sources. I don't have them to hand at the moment, but afterwards I'd be delighted. And I'm sure Friends of the Earth and so on would be very pleased to send you a briefing on all of this, because they've gone into it extensively. I mean, even New York's...
Could I remind the noble Baroness of what was said in the Committee on Economic Affairs of this House? On the evidence we have heard, there should be no risk that seismic activity caused by hydraulic fracking would be sufficient magnitude to constitute any risk to people and property.
Well, thank you for interrupting me. In fact, Lord Smith, who was then the chair of the Environment Agency, actually reported to that Economic Affairs Committee that groundwater contamination is the biggest environmental threat in this Act. Now, the Labour minister in the other place said it was all or nothing, that the government accept the amendment, including banning fracking near aquifers, or they would oppose fracking altogether. I look forward to the Labour Party actually reaffirming their opposition today. I mean, it might be that people assume this is an unelected House, that nobody watches what goes on here, but actually people do watch, and people do care out there. Fracking is a very, very controversial issue, and people will voice their concerns, and they have already. I do feel a government U-turn on this is absolutely unforgivable. You also So the second issue, there is the issue of trespass, of course, and I think there is a later amendment that might deal with this, but I think it doesn't go far enough. Groundwater contamination is actually one of the key environmental and public health risks from fracking, and contaminated water is obviously a huge risk to the well-being of the population. In some parts of the UK, more than 70% of public drinking water is from groundwater. And the government promising to redefine groundwater source areas, that is a secondary legislation issue. But actually, the whole idea originally from the Labour amendment was that this should go on the face of the bill, that it should be primary legislation and not secondary. Sorry, I thought somebody stood up. A leaked letter from the Chancellor had instructions to pull out all the stops to make for an easier life for fracking companies. Now, this probably isn't surprising when our Prime Minister has said we're going all out for shale. So I can sort of accept that that side of the House is very gung-ho on the fracking issue, but I really hope for something better on this side of the House. It would as well, this amendment, the original Amendment 21, would give an opportunity for all of us to vote against the issue of trespass within this Act. I think that despite assertions that shale gas is such a fantastic new source of energy, it's really time for us to consider just how much, just really if it would have a lower carbon footprint. And the fact is it probably wouldn't if you include CO2 and methane. It's one of those things that we can go for very, very hard when we don't know all the risks. But here today, we really have to understand that those risks exist. I think that this House has a duty outside, to people outside who know that there are risks. 360,000 people voiced their concerns about things like trespass. A lot of people responded to a consultation on the risks of fracking as well. There is concern out there that I feel is not well represented in this House, and I do urge the government to think again about this amendment. Thank you.
The question is Amendment 21.